Where it's a dry night, it won't be as cold because there will be more cloud. There will still be some pockets of frost across the south and the east, but generally temperatures staying above freezing, certainly in most urban areas. Into the weekend, and it's a bright start across parts of southeast England, the east coast of England, but generally a lot of cloud, and that'll be the case on Sunday as well. There will be some rain at times across the Highlands and the Western Isles, perhaps easing off in the far northwest. It will stay quite breezy here, but here also the highest temperatures, we could reach double figures, maybe up to 12 Celsius on the Murray coastline, and generally cloudy further south, but a touch milder than Friday, 8 or 9 Celsius. And we will see some sunshine at times. There will be some breaks in the cloud, and that will continue on Saturday evening. Again, where we have breaks in the cloud, we could see some pockets of frost. And again, for Sunday, there will be some patchy rain across the northwest, but otherwise largely dry. Most places cloudy. Best of any sunny spells will be across parts of the east. Goodbye.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world. If
you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
And welcome once again to On the Money. It's your daily weekday dose of economics, business and consumer news. I'm Liam Halligan, and for the next hour, we'll be talking about the shameful shambles that's the basic state pension payment system. Not my words, but those of a powerful cross-party committee of MPs. And how about some cheese for the weekend? We talked to one of the UK's oldest cheesemakers, specialises in Stilton. Yes, it smells like socks, but I love it. On the Money, after the GB News headlines with Rhiannon Jones.
Good afternoon, it's 1 o'clock. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB Newsroom. The US Secretary of State has said Washington and Moscow have a better understanding of each other's positions on Ukraine. That's following urgent talks in Geneva. Antony Blinken met Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov amid rising fears that Russia's about to stage an incursion. Russia says it's still waiting for a written response to demands it has made. Mr. Blinken said it's up to Russia to decide whether diplomacy or military action prevails.
So that's the choice that Russia faces now. It can choose the path of diplomacy that can lead to peace and security, or the path that will lead only to conflict, severe consequences, and international condemnation. The United States and our allies and partners in Europe stand ready to meet Russia on either path, and we will continue to stand with Ukraine.
Earlier, the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss called on Russia to desist and step back from Ukraine. Speaking in Australia, she said an invasion would lead to a terrible quagmire and loss of life.
They claim they want stability while they work to threaten and destabilise others. We know what lies down that path and the terrible toll in lives lost and human suffering it brings. That's why we urge President Putin to desist and step back from Ukraine before he makes a massive strategic mistake.
Babes in the Wood killer Russell Bishop, who murdered 2 schoolgirls in the 1980s, has died of cancer. The 55-year-old was jailed for a minimum of 36 years in 2018 for killing Nicola Fellows and Karen Hadaway in Brighton in 1986. He was cleared of their murders in 87, but while serving a life sentence for the attempted murder of a 3rd child, he was ordered to face a fresh trial under the double jeopardy law. The Business Secretary has told GB News claims of blackmail by Conservative whips over the distribution of public funds are ridiculous. Kwasi Kwarteng's comments follow reports that rebels are threatening to publish secret text messages and recordings from the Prime Minister's supporters. Boris Johnson says he's seen no evidence to support the claims.
All public spending goes through proper process. There's a proper official paper trail, if you like. There's a proper procedure through which public finance, taxpayers' money ultimately is allocated. So any idea that the Whip's office have this in their gift, I think should be challenged immediately. And clearly, if these allegations are true, that's a very, very serious allegation, and I'd want to see them properly investigated.
Nicola Sturgeon has been reported to the statistics watchdog amid claims she seriously twisted COVID-19 figures. At Stormont yesterday, the First Minister announced England's infection rate is over 20% higher than in Scotland. The Office for National Statistic figures show 5.4% of people in England have coronavirus compared to 4.49% in Scotland. Scottish Liberal Democrats have criticised Nicola Sturgeon for not being clear, as there's just 0.98 percentage points between the two figures. A gigafactory in Northumberland has been given the green light. The electric vehicle battery plant in Blyth will employ 3,000 people and create another 5,000 jobs. Government backing is for an undisclosed amount believed to be around £100 million. Hospital patients in Norwich will be moved to a hotel to receive treatment in a bid to free up beds. The pilot scheme will last 3 months and will target patients who are ready to leave hospital but need extra care before they can go home. COVID-19 patients will not be involved in the pilot. NHS Norfolk Clinical Commissioning Group says it's necessary as the health and care system is in a critical position. Sports fans in Wales are allowed back into stadiums for the first time since Boxing Day. First Minister Mark Drakeford says he's confident it's also safe to lift COVID restrictions on outdoor hospitality. But he stressed Wales isn't out of the woods yet. This is the second step in the government's plan to take Wales back to alert level 0. The Vice Chair of Swansea City Supporters Trust says football fans are ready to get back.
Our overriding thought was our members. We know that some members struggle at this time of year, particularly those who are alone, and getting to games of football is quite important for the sake of their own mental health and well-being. The feeling was just disappointment that we'd got used to going to games and it was being taken away from us again. So, yeah, we can't wait to get back in.
Tributes are being paid to US singer Meat Loaf, who has died aged 74. His career, which spanned 6 decades, saw him sell over 100 million albums with hits such as I'd Do Anything for Love and Bat Out of Hell. He also starred in 65 movies, including The Rocky Horror Picture Show and Wayne's World. And staying with music, Adele has apologised to fans for postponing the start of her Las Vegas residency because the show isn't ready. The singer says her production team tried everything to pull it together in time, but delivery delays and COVID made it impossible. The show was due to open today and run most Fridays and Saturdays until April. In a social media post, she apologised to those fans that have travelled to see her.
We've been absolutely destroyed by delivery delays and COVID. Half my crew, half my team are down with COVID, they still are. and it's been impossible to finish the show. And I can't give you what I have right now. And I'm gutted. I'm gutted, and I'm sorry it's so last minute.
This is GB News. We'll bring you more as and when it happens, but now let's return to Liam and On the Money.
And coming up on the money today on GB News Television and DAB Radio. Almost 10 million elderly people receive the basic state pension, but tens of thousands have endured underpayments, amounting to over £1 billion. That's according to a cross-party committee of MPs, who accuse the Department of Work and Pensions of presiding over a shameful shambles. Meanwhile, a not-so-merry Christmas for shoppers and shopkeepers, with retail sales slumping by nearly 4% in December. But is it all bad news? As ever, on The Money, we host grown-up discussions with people who really know their stuff. Plus, Money Talks interview today is with a really big cheese. It's Bill Matheson. He's the Managing Director of Long Clawson Dairy, Stilton maker extraordinaire. He'll be sharing the realities of running a long-established cheese factory in the East Midlands.
I would say that every single person in our organisation, all the way through from our farmers, through the people, all the way through our supply chain in helping us get the product from farm to fork, are very much cheesemakers. And each of them, in their own special way, make sure that we can delight our consumers by getting fantastic quality products into their hands.
Oh, I do like a bit of cheese. That's later in the show. And as ever, I want your questions, opinions, ideas. What do you think of the issues raised in today's On the Money? How do they affect you? Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet @GBNews. We'll read out some of your messages later in the show, so stay with us. This is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan. You're On the Money. Now, with the cold weather upon us, it's a difficult time for the elderly, particularly those struggling to make ends meet. Around 10 million of our senior citizens receive the basic state pension, typically around £180 a week, with many relying on that cash to help with the bare essentials, not least heating and eating. We should be shocked then that according to a report published this morning by an influential cross-party committee of MPs, the basic state pension payment system is, quote, not fit for purpose. Collating errors going back to the mid-1980s, the Public Accounts Committee, or PAC, has identified what it calls myriad payment errors, affecting 134,000, mostly female living and deceased pensioners. MPs have identified combined basic state pension underpayments of over £1 billion. B for billion, that's more than £1,000 million, those underpayments, with the PAC accusing the Department for Work and Pensions of complacency and presiding over that shameful shambles. Civil servants became aware of these systemic underpayments in early 2020, with errors mostly affecting women first claiming the basic state pension after April 2016, mainly those without full national insurance records or those inheriting additional entitlements from deceased partners. Corrective action began in 2021. 5 years later, what took them so long? With the Department for Work and Pensions bringing in 500 additional staff. The Department for Work and Pensions is now on its 9th go at fixing these mistakes, says Meg Hillier. She's the chair of the Public Accounts Committee, with the specialised staff diverted to fix this mess, costing tens of millions more to the taxpayer and predictable consequences in delays to new pension claims. The PAC chair, Meg Hillier, goes on, there is no assurance that errors that led to these underpayments in the first place will not be repeated in the correction exercise. Now, delayed payments could be due to over 100,000 pensioners, averaging £8,900 each. But the DWP has been complacent, said this parliamentary report, having tracked down just a fraction of those eligible. Meanwhile, the number of older people worried about heating their homes has jumped to nearly 8 million, over half our pensioners, according to a poll conducted by the campaigning charity Age UK. And when the Ofgem energy price cap is lifted early next month, household fuel bills are set to rise further. For a couple of weeks now, On the Money's Scrap the VAT campaign has highlighted the case for removing VAT on energy bills. That would save the average household around £150 a year. And as this cost of living crisis escalates, both Age UK and GB News, we're being flooded with stories from thousands of older people who are struggling, already cutting back on heating, food and other essentials before prices rise even more. And that's our On the Money discussion today. The UK's cost of living crisis. How can the elderly cope? Grown-up discussions here on The Money as ever. Joining me, delighted to see Sir Steve Webb, former Minister for Pensions, former Liberal Democrat MP, a man who really does know his stuff when it comes to pensions, as does Hannah Pearce. She's the Joint Head of External Affairs at Age UK. And she's back, Helen Thomas. Well, she knows pretty much about everything. She is the CEO of Blonde Money and a friend of this show. So, Steve, great to see you here back on The Money. We always appreciate your time and your expertise. You know Parliament well, you know Whitehall well, you know the Department for Work and Pensions well. You used to be a minister there. What do you make of the Public Affairs Accounts Committee, a leading committee of the House of Commons, calling the DWP, accusing them of presiding over a shameful shambles in terms of these missed pension payments?
Well, as you say, Liam, it may not be much to the DWP. These sort of figures are a kind of rounding error when you run a department that spends £200 billion a year. But for the individuals concerned, it can be life-changing amounts. So when I first started finding cases 2 years ago now, we took them to the department. They'd say, oh, we are very sorry, one-off error, we fixed it, let us know of any more. We'd find more, we'd send more and more. And the department's view just kept being, this is just isolated errors. And it's only really when I tabled a Freedom of Information request and produced a report suggesting there was over 100,000 errors that they started taking it seriously. And even then, it was another 6 months before they started trying to track people down. And that correction process will take several years. So most of the people we're talking about today still are on the wrong pension and still don't know yet that they have been underpaid.
Steve, if I may just stay with you, I know you've been instrumental in bringing this huge gross injustice, over £1 billion, to people, often needy elderly people. They're entitled to it. They haven't been paid it. It's the civil servants' fault. Why, oh, why does it take from 2016, when these underpayments first came to light, not least due to your efforts, why does it take from then until 2020 for the DWP to even start to track these people down?
What seems to have happened is that the DWP do checks every year of a sample of people on benefit and people on pensions and check if the figures are correct or not. And what they did was they looked at state pensions and said the error rate was 0 point something or other and said, well, that's not much, is it? We'll just get on with the day job, as it were. And of course, if you are someone being underpaid this year and underpaid next year and underpaid the year after, of course, these losses mount up. So it may be 0 point not very many %, but it's out of a huge budget and affecting lots of people. So really what happened is many of these women retired potentially decades ago, or certainly many years ago. They were on the wrong amount. They didn't know because the system's complicated. So how do you know what the right figure is? The department didn't think there was a systematic problem. It was only really when we kept bringing individual cases to them week after week, they eventually, after gnawing away at them, accepted there was a problem that needed addressing.
Hannah Pearce, let's come to you. You're from Age UK. Great to see you as ever. Campaigning charity. We're doing a bit of a double header here on The Money today. We're talking about these basic state pension underpayments, of course, but we're also talking about the difficulties that lots of older people are having, choosing, if you like, between heating and eating. You are very much a public-facing charity. Many older people get in touch with you. How serious is now this cost of living crisis for older people in the UK, even before heating bills go up even more?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that we're already in a crisis. Our research has found that around 8 million older people are worried about heating their homes. That's gone up from about That's about 60% of over 65s who are worried about heating their homes. That's gone up from about 40% just a few weeks ago. People are just deeply worried about the energy bills that they are expected to face in a few months' time, and already worried about the action that they need to be taking to reduce their bills. So we're hearing about people who are cutting back on their heating already, cutting back on other food bills, and thousands of people have already got in touch to tell us they're worried. So we really need some urgent action now from the government.
Helen, let's come to you. This cost of living crisis, we've talked about it endlessly here on The Money. It's going to get worse before it gets better, isn't it? Particularly for our elderly and most vulnerable.
Well, inflation is going to get a bit worse before it gets better. Or, as you know with me, I might not phrase it exactly like that. With my economist's hat on, I'd say it will be a bit higher before it goes lower. Now, as we have said before, some of that can be combated if you're in a job. You could get wage inflation. We've talked about that often. But here we are talking about pensioners. Different kettle of fish.
They don't get wages, they get a basic state pension. And sometimes they don't get their basic state pension.
So this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, this is part of, the triple lock, the uprating of those pensions. But goodness me, if they can't even get the actual amount right, I mean, what does it matter if it's uprated? If you're, that's quite astonishing average number you flagged up.
Yeah, £8,900. The average underpayment, if they can find the people. As far as we can tell, the DWP has only found a handful of the more than 100,000 pensioners who have been underpaid.
Yeah, and can I say, and I'm really glad you got Steve Webb here because I've followed him on this. I think it's been a very important story. He's done an awful lot to bring it up. But things have changed since he began in a good way, which is we've had the pandemic. We've seen what the state can do when it's mobilised. It got out money to businesses. It got bounce back loans out. It got other loans out. It got grants out. It dropped rates. It suspended that it can do it when it needs to. So I think the question needs to be, as you said, why is it taking so long? Why can't these payments just get out there? And I think clearly, I mean, we're very sad people who follow what the Public Accounts Committee say, don't we?
I'm a big fan.
We love them.
I love a bit of Public Accounts Committee with my Stilton. That's coming later.
Yeah, exactly. And Meg Hillier does not mince her words.
She's the chair, absolutely.
And for them to be using this language, I mean, they're deeply...
And it's very interesting, isn't it? The Public Accounts Committee, it is cross-party. The chair is traditionally an economically literate, financially savvy member of the opposition. That's why Meg Hillier, Labour MP, is chairing the most powerful committee of the House of Commons, which is the Public Accounts Committee. Let me ask Steve Webb. Steve, you're an experienced parliamentarian, you're a former minister, you know more about pensions than pretty much anyone in our public life, if I may say so. Now we've had this real bombshell report by the Public Accounts Committee. It's breaking through into the news, despite all the parliamentary theatre and shenanigans going on. What happens now? How will that report exert pressure and actually get money to those pensioners who are entitled to it?
Well, the DWP has a plan, and that plan originally was going to take 5 years to sort all this out. We complained about that, and they brought it down to 2 years, so the end of 2023. And the key really is that they're held to the account for that they get on with that they find the people. So, give you an example. They've said they'll start with the oldest, and that sounds right, doesn't it? You'd want to start with the most elderly. I had a lady who's 88 before Christmas, and she's missing out on her pension, and they haven't got to her yet. Well, it makes you wonder what the elderly is if the 88-year-olds haven't been reached yet. So if this gives new impetus to the DWP to do something, and two other things just briefly, they mentioned in the report I think are important. One is interest. They're not paying interest on this money, and they should. It's outrageous. If you've been underpaid for 10 years, at the very least, you should get interest on the money. That's one thing. And the other is they're not looking at people who are divorced, and divorced people have complex pension arrangements. They should be checking them as well, because many of them, I believe, are underpaid. I've written to them. The select committee's endorsed that they should look at this, and I want to hear back from them what they're going to do about it.
Well, look, there may be parliamentary shenanigans. Meatloaf may have died. Bad out of hell. What an album. But we are carrying on with this discussion because it strikes us on the money that what our viewers and listeners really care about is this cost of living crisis. Are these rising fuel bills? Are these rising prices in the shop? So we're going to stick with this discussion. All our guests are going to stay with us after the break. Let me just say the DWP, the Department for Work and Pensions, said, and I read the statement, resolving the historical state pension underpayments that have been made by successive governments is a priority for the department, and we're committed to doing so as quickly as possible. We've set up the DWP Continued, a dedicated team, and devoted significant resources to processing outstanding cases. We've introduced new quality control processes and improved training to help ensure this doesn't happen again. Those affected will be contacted by us to ensure they receive all that they are owed. Well, we shall see, and On the Money will be keeping its beady eye on this story. This is On the Money with me, Liam Halligan. Stay with us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 1:24. You're on the money with me, Liam Halligan, here on GB News on television and radio. We're discussing the UK's cost of living crisis. How can the elderly cope? This afternoon, an official parliamentary report showed the basic state pension payment system is, and I quote, a shameful shambles. Plus, the campaigning charity Age UK have been highlighting how millions of pensioners are already having to choose between heating and eating. And that's before yet more energy prices kick in April. Well, all my guests are still with us. Hannah Pearce of Age UK. I know your charity isn't just public-facing, isn't just providing assistance and campaigning. You're also formidable lobbying, trying to influence policy. What are you hearing, Hannah, that you can disclose about the way ministers may respond to this cost of living crisis, particularly when it comes to helping the elderly?
Well, I think, as Helen said, government fundamentally is a question of setting priorities, and we really think that this is a huge priority. Older people are facing a genuine crisis now. It's not looming; they're facing it now. We want the government to announce an emergency package of measures. We think people need financial support to give them the confidence to keep the heating on now. We've suggested a couple of solutions. So one is to cut the 5% rate of VAT on all energy bills from April till at least the end of the year. And we think that would save between £100 and £150 for each household. But we also think there needs to be an additional emergency payment of up to about £500 for the older people who are on the lowest incomes. And we've suggested that they use the eligibility of those people who currently receive cold weather payments as a way of identifying those most in need. We've been disappointed, really, not to have seen a more urgent response from government. And we've written an open letter to the Prime Minister, which was launched last week. Over 70,000 of our campaigners have signed that letter. And we're really hopeful that we might see an announcement in the next week or two, which will help older people.
Well, Hannah, I must say here at GB News, we've launched our own Scrap the VAT campaign calling for energy to be zero rated. And great to hear one of the UK's most respected campaigning charities singing from the same song sheet. That makes us proud. I'm delighted to introduce to this conversation Richard Holden. He's the Conservative MP for North West Durham. Now, he's a member of the Public Accounts Committee. He was involved in creating this report that we're discussing. Now, MPs are always very busy on a Friday, travelling back to their constituencies. We've tracked down Richard. He's pulled over in his car on his way back to his constituency to talk to us. Richard, we really appreciate it. Nice backdrop, nice sky, nice weather. But on a serious note, a lot of people should be receiving more in terms of the basic state pension at the moment than they currently are. A lot of people who are struggling to make ends meet.
Yes, no, and this report today just highlighted £1 billion, over 100,000 people, pensioners, some of whom haven't actually seen this money since 1985, the year I was born. So it goes back a long way. And sadly, tens of thousands of these people will have already passed away. So this is a real issue, and it's something that the DWP just really needs now to get a grip of, because our report just highlights what an important issue it is for so many pensioners, especially those on lower incomes, women particularly across the country.
Richard, you got a low blow in there telling me you were born in 1985. You're making me feel like an old man. Not yet old enough for the basic state pension, if they actually pay it to me, though we shall see. It's not that long away for me. I wanted to say something to you, Richard. I've followed Parliament for a long time, been a parliamentary reporter. I've got a huge amount of admiration for the Public Accounts Committee, not only because you guys do really forensic reports, but because it's a genuinely cross-party committee, isn't it? There are you. You're a Tory MP up in the red wall. You've just won your seat in 2019. You're fighting to keep that seat at the next election, and yet your chair is Meg Hillier, who's a Labour MP. Do you just want to talk a little bit to the public about how the PAC works in order to highlight these really forensic issues so important to ordinary people that so often fall between the cracks?
No, I think that's a really good point you make, actually. We're a proper cross-party committee, but SNP, Conservatives and Labour on there, and always chaired by an opposition MP. It's the oldest of all the committees in Parliament, set up by Gladstone in the late 19th century, basically to keep a cross-party eye on public finances. So my job is to work with people across the House in order to ensure that you guys, all the taxpayers, get decent value for money for whatever the government's proposing. Now, what we don't do is we don't really argue about policy on the committee. We just argue about and try and debate and try and get to the root of whether what the government's being proposed is being implemented properly and whether the taxes in order to do it are being well spent. So that's what we're really going on. We're going for the efficiency rather than the policy behind it. And that's why we call all of the civil servants to account on a daily basis, the people who are the accounting officers, the ones who actually hold the pen on the checks that go out. So we're doing huge amounts of work, as you can imagine at the moment, on COVID. We're doing lots of work on these issues around pensions today. But that's what we're doing across the board. Anything about defence contracts as well, all that sort of thing, it all comes through us. And we have to be, whatever party we are, we've got to be there and really hold the government machine to account. Because often these issues, like this pensions issue, it's been going on for 36 years, and so these things often from government to government, it's not a party political issue sometimes. It's about trying to get best value for the taxpayer, whoever's in power.
Time coming to the On the Money studio at some stage to talk more about the PAC's work. Get back in your car. I hope you enjoy the rest of your journey up to County Durham. Turn the radio to GB News. Steve Webb, let's finish with you. How does this go forward now? We've talked about high energy bills. We've talked about massive underpayments to the basic state pension, over £1 billion. I know you won't rest, even though you're not even in Parliament anymore. What's going to happen in order to make sure 100,000 people, plus many of them elderly women, are not getting their basic state pension? How do we make sure now that happens?
I think we need a change of culture at DWP, who even when they admitted there was a problem, then got very closed and defensive, almost like one of those sort of prickly hedgehogs that's sort of spiky and doesn't want anyone to see what's going on inside. They need to open up. They need to tell us how this exercise is progressing. If they're behind schedule, they need to put more resources into it. You know, they say it's a priority in that quote they gave to you. Let's see the evidence of that. Let's get these pensions paid. You know, as you've said, people need this money now, not in 2 years' time. And we need to be able to hold them to account for it. And all too often, they don't want scrutiny.
There you go, on the money. Grown-up conversations with people who really know their stuff. Thank you so much to all my guests on that discussion. Steve Webb, Helen Pearce of Age UK, and, of course, Richard Holden of the Public Accounts Committee. Helen, Mrs. Blonde Money herself, is staying with us for the rest of the show. This is On the Money with me, Liam Halligan. Coming up, today's In-Depth Money Talks interview. It's with one of Britain's best-loved cheese moguls, a proper...
I'm Bill, and I'm really proud to be the Managing Director at Long Clawson, but I'm even more proud to say that I'm a cheesemaker.
He's a proper big cheese. First, the GB News headlines with Rhiannon Jones.
It's 1:33. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. Downing Street has warned Moscow will be punished by the UK and its allies if it pushes ahead with destabilising action in Ukraine. The US Secretary of State has been holding talks with Russia's foreign minister in Switzerland to avert a conflict. Anthony Blinken says both sides now have a better understanding of each other's positions. The Business Secretary has told GB News claims of blackmail by Conservative whips over the distribution of public funds are ridiculous. Kwasi Kwarteng's comments follow reports that rebels are threatening to publish secret text messages and recordings from the Prime Minister's support, with hits such as "I'd Do Anything for Love" and "Bat Out of Hell." TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. We're back at the top of the hour. See you then.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. You're on the money. It's 1:37 here on GB News and GB News Radio. Now, December's often the busiest month of the year for retailers across the UK, of course. But official figures out this morning paint a bleak picture of sales during the festive period. Consumer spending dropped 3.7% last month as the Omicron variant kept punters away from the high street. But it's not all bad news. The ONS says that in 2021 as a whole, the volume of retail sales rose 5.1%, the strongest growth since 2004, albeit from a low base, given the extent of lockdown during 2020. Here to break down these figures, she's still with us. Can't get rid of her. It's Helen Thomas, Blonde Money. There she is. And also the esteemed retail expert, Kate Hardcastle, who joins us from Leeds. Kate, thank you so much for joining us from the capital of Yorkshire. What do you make of these numbers?
The numbers aren't surprising. We've got a very, very evolving retail marketplace where we're seeing change happen constantly around the emotion of shopping. It makes sense that consumers went out and bought early this Christmas because they were warned to. We were dealing with elements of short supply on the shelves. And then we also saw that consumers were warned very much about the cost increases they were going to expect in those family budgets, particularly food and fuel going up in the new year. So it makes sense for all different reasons that consumers became then wary, trying to make sure that although they had a great Christmas and one the best they could afford, they weren't over-splurging at that point, being sensible. We do shop emotionally, and I think that's why we've got to make sure that when we read data and figures, we are ensuring that the consumer behaviours, the way we feel, the way that the world really is reported into that. I can assure you that retail is going to continue evolving and continue to change over the next few years. And that's why our high street remedy plans need to be perhaps less about the blue sky thinking and more about the grey street pavement reality of it, because it isn't about a finite solution of what's going to fix it. It's going to be how do we evolve with consumer change. And remember also, retail is retail. The purchase is happening as much online now as it is in traditional stores, particularly through those lockdowns. It was certainly all pretty much happening online. And we know that the online operators have really got hold of the consumer buying habits. So we've got to make sure that anything that balances that in our high streets is a good offer because we want to shop there rather than the fact that we actually need to shop there anymore.
The high street will evolve, is evolving, Kate, as you say. But just before we talk more generally and bring in Helen Thomas, just going back to those numbers, you're the retail expert, but it strikes me just eyeballing the monthly growth totals from the ONS that a lot of us shopped early for Christmas in October and November because we were worried about shortages. We were hearing about supply chain issues all the time. We were worried some of the shops might close and be locked down because of the Omicron variant. Do you think there's something in that? Do you think it wasn't a bad Christmas overall, even though the December figure was disappointing? Because if you take in the round the final quarter, October, November and December, it's not nearly as bad.
As I said right at the start, absolutely. We were shopping earlier because we had those warnings about the shelves perhaps not being as full, the products were going to be limited. We were warned that some items, particularly toys, might not be there at all. So, of course, we're going to react to that as consumers. But I think as well, the emotion of wanting it to be a better Christmas, wanting to make sure that we did splurge a bit this year, meant that people were quite excited about it. They wanted to get back out. They wanted to shop. So I think there were many different reasons that we saw that pull. Black Friday certainly happened earlier. It's meant to be the Friday after Thanksgiving. Offers started flooding into email inboxes around the 1st of November and earlier. Christmas advertising even started early this year. So many things were creating that push. And we heard from organisations like Marks and Spencer's, like Tesco's, that they had a good buoyant Christmas. But when you dig into those details, M&S, particularly on the non-food, it was the turnaround because of value. Those were the lines that had worked well for them. Again, the supermarkets and the retailers that had done well were offering a good value to customers. And I think we've still got consumers very aware of shopping and balancing the weekly budget. And we will have that for the whole of 2022.
Helen, we just saw some pictures there of Oxford Street in the run-up to Christmas. It wasn't that busy, but as Kate Hardcastle says, in the round, it wasn't a bad Christmas, though lots of us shopped early. Not me, I always leave it to the last minute, but I'm a bloke. It's amazing what you can buy at a garage when you need to later. Putting that aside, Kate also talked about the evolution of the high street. As we think about levelling up, as we think about how the Conservative government is going to try to appeal to regional voters, the high street is really centre stage, isn't it, when it comes to convincing them that the towns of Britain are just as important as the cities?
Yes, but I take on board Kate's point. This is a new world. It's something we often talk about here. It's something I've been talking about since the pandemic began, is the new economy. And in those retail sales numbers, I think it was around 25% was done online. Now, that is a lot higher than
Yeah.
was the case. And actually, the UK is well advanced from some other economies, far advanced, in fact, in the way we shop online. We're delighted to get on clicking away to deliver everything. Which suggests, well, what are the high street? What is the high street? What's it there for? And I think Kate was alluding to that, about the emotional experience of it.
It's the centre of the community since humanity began, isn't it?
Oh, you mean as in, you know, the
The
market,
agora, the market where you meet and greet.
Yes, to a degree, but I think now we have to look at it in a very, very different way, because I think, and this is maybe just a topic for another day, but the metaverse, the virtual world. Ralph Lauren this week, their chief executive, was talking about how they've got a store in this so-called metaverse, a virtual shopping centre where we can all virtually meet and wear our virtual glad rags. Now,
Science fiction, isn't it?
Well, it's becoming science fact. It really is. But that doesn't mean we don't want to do things in the real world. We just might want to do them differently. We might want to go into a store which is all set up like we want our new front, our lounge to be with the sofas and all the rest of it. And we might want to, have a real experience when we go to the shopping centres. So I think the really key point here, actually, to pull out to the bigger picture is we shop differently. That is a good thing, but we should embrace it. And from the political side of it, we can't go back to, the 1950s. We're in a new world now.
We are in a new world. Kate, what do you say to this? As Helen Thomas says, she always gets controversial on a Friday, making me feel old, talking about science, facts and all the rest of it. Of course, the UK is a centre of online retailing. Of course, online retailing has its place, but the high street has its place too. Human contact has its place too. Don't you think, or do you think, we need to change the tax regime so those bricks and mortar retailers in the real world don't end up paying a lot more tax than the internet online tech giants?
We need to make sure that good business that can be profitable, that has meaning, that has resonance with its consumers, can afford to keep trading. And we know industries that are on the high street are interwoven. It isn't just a case that retail separate to hospitality, separate to service. People go and have their haircut, they'll go and have a coffee, and they'll pick something up in the shop. That's how it works. So we need much more fusion. We need much more engagement and reality in that business plan to make it work. And taxes, of course, is part of that. Going back to the point, actually, I was at the NRF this week, which is the biggest national retail show in America, in New York, where that keynote from the CEO of Ralph Lauren was there. He sold 100,000 units in the metaverse. So it's not at all something that isn't a reality when it comes to the cash, Liam. You need to make sure that you're aware that this is going to be part of the reality. And, organizations there like Target, Walmart, Ralph Lauren, some of the biggest retailers in America, describing what they see as a future. And I certainly am going to be looking into some of the things they're talking about, understanding how that relates to the UK market and talking to people about that. But we can't discount any element of the purchasing cycle. They're all up for play, and it makes it a very exciting place to be.
Kate Hardcastle, retail expert from Leeds. I'm getting hammered from all sides by my guest. I've got Kate telling me I have to keep up. I've got Richard Holden telling me I'm getting old. I'm telling me to get down with the reality. Fantastic discussion. Thank you so much for joining us, Kate. And, of course, Helen Thomas, CEO of Blonde Money. See you back here again soon. Just to bring in a few of your emails, you've been writing about pensions. It's obviously a subject close to your hearts, as Age UK said and says the basic state pension is £180 per week for most pensioners, but those born before 1950 get nowhere near that amount, only £137 a week. Good point. I'll make sure I make that clarification clear in the future. And thank you very much indeed. Ian says, my mother retired and returned to live in her home country of Southern Ireland in 2001. She's paid her pension monthly from the UK. She thinks she may be one of those 100,000 people who were paid the wrong lower pension since 1985. She needs to get writing to the DWP. Howard says, what about the government dropping the triple lock pension and preventing us receiving a few more shillings? A subject we've discussed many times here on The Money. And Jackie emailed GBViews at gbnews.uk to say many old people are also technically at a disadvantage as well as alone. Love that you highlight many issues that others ignore. Jackie, that's what we're here to do. With your help, keep writing to us, telling us about those issues you want us to cover on The Money Is Your Show too. Joyce says, I believe we have to apply for the Warm House discount every year. Power companies hide from us If we're not internet literate, it should be automatic. And then on retail, Janice contacted us to say, much rather go into a shop like to feel and touch what I'm buying. Loads of people do. Me too. Keep your emails coming. Tell us what you want to discuss here on the show, and thank you for writing. Now it's time for my daily interview series, Money Talks, and backed by popular demand, we have Bill Matheson. He's the Managing Director of Long Clawston Dairy in Leicestershire. And just before Christmas, Bill appeared on The Money, gracing a discussion about the broader economy, and today he's back in the studio to tell us about his business. Long Clawston was founded all the way back in 1912. It's even older than me, over 100 years old. Using traditional methods, Long Clawston works with over 40 farms in the East Midlands. We are in the presence of a cheese-making royalty. Bill, I'm going to start on a pretty important question. Why was the cheesemaker lopsided?
I don't know.
Because he only had one stilt on. I know it's bad. I've said it to you as a bet, and now I've won the bet. Great to see you here on The Money. We really enjoyed having you on the show before. You've got an amazing cheese board there, making my mouth water just to look at it. I do like a bit of cheese. What's it like running a 112-year-old cheese factory?
I think I'm very proud. I think I feel very privileged to be the managing director of Long Clawston Dairy. The business was founded on the principle of providing a sustainable home for a farmer's milk in the community, and that was over 100 years ago, and we still operate in that principle today. So every one of our 35 farmer members, they own a share in the business, and that means that the model we operate on is that any profit we make either goes back to them or for reinvestment in the business.
You know, when you think about it, Stilton, Red Leicester, Gloucestershire, Wensleydale, I mean, we are a cheese-making superpower, aren't we, in the UK?
I like to think so. And
so what about French cheese? Who wants that soft stuff when you can have some Stilton?
Well, I would fully agree with that. I think we need to get, I think we said last time, Liam, we need to get people eating more Stilton. I think it's an incredibly versatile product, and there's much more we could do with it. It's about 1% of the cheese market, which is about a 3 billion market in itself. So we're very small by comparison. And we're very privileged to have about 65% of the Stilton market worldwide. So, but by all comparisons, some of the big corporates in the cheese industry, we're very much a small artisan cheesemaker.
Bill, tell us about lockdown. How was it for you, your company, your employees, your factory, your sales?
I think what we found as a business during lockdown was there was a lot of fear because of the natural drop down, particularly in food service business. But what we actually saw was a change in terms of channel. So what we saw was that people in lockdown were becoming much more adventurous, creative in terms of what they were doing at home. So as food service business came down, actually our retail business really shot through the roof. So we actually ended up having a very good time in terms of lockdown, during lockdown, in terms of sales, and we had a pretty good year last year. The challenge has actually probably been more this year with challenges around labour and inflation that we're facing.
I think we've got to take the plunge here. Why don't you just cut me off a little bit of Stilton there
pass it to you,
on one of those nice bickies. There's a lovely cheese paring knife. There it is. I'm going to cut a little bit of Stilton here. Now, the thing about Stilton, as my kids often say, is, oh, Dad, I don't like it. It's a bit strong. And I was the same when my dad used to eat Stilton. And you're going to answer in a minute, and I'm going to taste some of this lovely cheese. It is one of those tastes that gets better with age, isn't it? It's a bit like Brussels sprouts or other strong flavours. When you're a kid, you don't like it, but as you get a bit older, suddenly your taste buds change. Is that just in my imagination, or is that what really happens?
I don't know whether it's through the fact we're not exposed to it earlier in our life or whatever, but I acquired my taste for Stilton in my mid-20s. I've loved it ever since. Stilton, as you can see here, is fantastic on a cheese board.
Absolutely
but
brilliant.
It's also incredibly versatile. You know, it's fantastic in jacket potatoes. It's fantastic on pizza.
Melted Stilton.
It's beautiful. And actually,
with a bit of apple. I like it with apple.
Apple and pear. It's absolutely beautiful with either. So.
And where do the sort of blue veins come from? What are they?
So the blue veins come from the fact that what we do is we bring the milk in, we add our starter culture and a rennet, and that's there, and then the curd is formed. And then once we've got the curd into our giant hoops, we make it in giant hoops. We pierce it at about 6 weeks. And what then happens is through the process, that then allows the blue Stilton veining to take place. And what we have is we then grade it as we go through the process, usually to about 8 to 10 weeks, we're really getting fantastic bloom. But all the way through that, our master cheesemakers are checking on the Stilton to see how it's maturing and checking to see that fabulous blue veining. And if the fabulous blue veining's coming along, we know we're getting a great cheese.
Yeah.
If it's not coming, then what we do is we discard that cheese. So every item, every cheese we have is individually graded to make sure we're putting the best Stilton on the market.
I must say that Stilton is very creamy, lovely texture. It's definitely Stilton. It's not a particularly strong Stilton, though. It is, you know, lunchtime. Maybe later at night, I'd prefer a stronger one. Is Stilton like wine? Does it mature with age? Can you eat a really old Stilton?
It changes as you go through. So what you find is you probably find if you take it too early and you get to about sort of, I don't know, 7, 8 weeks, you probably find it's got some real bitter notes at that point. And then as it starts to develop, anywhere between 10 and I would say 13 weeks to 14 weeks, it depends on the maturity. Each individual Stilton is a little bit different. If you go beyond that, you'll probably find it starts to become a little bit ammonia in taste.
Right.
So getting it in that window, and that's what we really focus on, is making sure when we put it on shelf, it's somewhere between that window where you can really have a fantastic Stilton. But as you say here, this is not a particularly strong Stilton, but very good on the palate. And
absolutely lovely. And you're selling your cheese around the world. You're exporting. What sort of share of your product goes abroad?
So our business is split. We've got 60% of our business is in UK retail, 20% goes into food service, and about 20% goes into our export sales.
It's quite chunky then.
It's quite chunky.
A fifth of your product goes overseas. Can you expand that market? I know at the moment we've got a Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, former Trade Secretary. She talks about cheese a lot. She's a big Stilton fan, as she often makes clear.
Well, we're very fortunate to host Liz up at the dairy last year. And, you know, for us, we very much see export as a massive opportunity for expansion. We export at the moment to about 42 countries. But we believe there's other opportunity to develop both within those countries and into new markets. So we absolutely see Stilton as a great opportunity. And one of your guests last time, I think it was Vicky who was on your show.
I've just got another bit. Sorry, I can't resist. Go for it.
I think she was professing. You asked the question of whether she liked Stilton, and I think she told you she liked feta cheese. She was from Greek background.
Yeah, she's Greek. Yeah, Vicky Price.
So I think what I'd like to do, actually, I'd like to put out there a little bit of a challenge, because what we have is we have a fantastic alternative to feta cheese here in our white Stilton. So quite simple here. We've got a very simple recipe, which a salad here, which consists of white Stilton, a bit of rocket, some sun-dried tomatoes.
It feels like feta cheese in my mouth.
It does everything from a point of view.
It even tastes like feta cheese.
Well, it's got this lovely, moist, light, crisp taste. And the great thing about it, it's a UK product, so it cuts down on road miles.
That's absolutely brilliant. I'm going to put this in the GB News fridge, and when Vicky comes in next week, we can have a taste off. Though I suspect she'll still be backing feta. Bill, last question. What we always ask our Money Talks, very briefly, what would you say to people about running a business? What's it like running a business? Can everyone run a business?
I'm sure there's many people out there who can run a business. We're very fortunate. We've got the support of our farmer members. I'd say it's probably been the most challenging of years that we've been facing due to particularly inflation that's coming our way. So that's the single biggest thing we've got on our agenda at the moment. We're facing huge inflation through energy, through ingredients costs going up, transport costs, and as a result of that, the biggest thing we need to do at the moment is pass those costs into pricing. So we were looking for partnership with our customers to enable us to do that. And if we can do that, we're very optimistic about the future. We believe that we can drive Stilton usage. People only buy it less than 4 times a year. So my message to anybody out there, consumer-wise, you want to support a British institution, a small British farming cooperative who are master cheesemakers, go out there and look for Longclawson on the label.
As the old saying goes, don't cheat on the cheese. Bill Matheson, Longclawson Dairy.
Thanks for your time.
Stilton maker extraordinaire, a proper big cheese. Thank you for appearing here on The Money.
Thanks for your time.
That's all we've got time for today. Thanks so much for joining me, whether you're watching on GB News Television, listening on GB News DAB Radio. We'll be back on Monday with more economics, business and consumer news. Have a lovely weekend. This is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan, and that was On The Money.
Hello. A sparkling day of sunshine for some today, a rather drab day for others, but all of us are going to be dry. pretty much. High pressure is in control. That's why the weather's so dry at the moment. So this high will stick around for most of us through the weekend as well. But it's just slipping a little further south, which is allowing the breeze to come around the top and bring more cloud into Northern Ireland, parts of Wales, Western England and Western Scotland. Still largely sunny across southern England, eastern Scotland, having blue skies for much of the rest of today. But some cloud will drift towards the east and further south across the Midlands. And the old spot of drizzle is possible over hills, but for most it's dry and fine. Temperatures a touch below average, so still feeling quite chilly, but probably feeling a little warmer in the east because that cold wind from yesterday has gone. Still quite breezy though across the far north of Scotland. That breeze bringing more cloud tonight and some drizzly conditions at times over the Highlands and the Western Isles. Elsewhere it's a dry night. It won't be as cold because there will be more cloud. There will still be some pockets of frost across the south and the east, but generally temperatures staying above freezing, certainly in most urban areas. Into the weekend, and it's a bright start across parts of southeast England, the east coast of England, but generally a lot of cloud, and that'll be the case on Sunday as well. There will be some rain at times across the Highlands and the Western Isles, perhaps easing off in the far northwest. It will stay quite breezy here, but here also the highest temperatures, we could reach double figures, maybe up to 12 Celsius on the Murray coastline, and generally cloudy further south, but a touch milder than Friday, 8 or 9 Celsius. And we will see some sunshine at times. There will be some breaks in the cloud, and that will continue on Saturday evening. Again, where we have breaks in the cloud, we could see some pockets of frost. And again,